All right. So, welcome to the WeisSacKing again. We are having a post Chicago Springfest chat today. I've got three others with me. Three of us were on top eight teams, and the other one was pissing people off with some shenanigans that they didn't like very much.
I'd
Um,
say more so
yeah.
pissing people off.
So, yeah, that dude up there. So I'm Tony. You've heard me, might never seen me before. We also have right above me is Aubrey, if you want to say anything. Next to him, we have Travis. Over here, we have some USB port issues, but that is Patrick from Rochester.
Hello.
Travis is Ohio. Aubrey is out here in Indianapolis area with me. Me and Patrick were on the same team. We got eighth in Chicago. I was playing 8 Stand By Slime. Patrick was playing 8 Stand By Mushoku. Aubrey was on the third place team with a couple of Davids that we know. You were on Mushoku, right?
I was on Mushoko. I
Yep.
was seat A.
Yep. And then Travis, what was that shit you were playing?
So, all the decks that my team were playing because we decided to have fun instead of be tryhards, even though we kind of tryharded with our decks. All of our decks had the following two effects. When this is reversed, reveal the top two or reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a level 0, add it to your hand. And when another of your characters goes from stage to waiting room, send this card to waiting room and save that character. So we just played Cheerios. If you're familiar with the Magic term, it's Cheerios. Most of our decks were about 30 to 36 level zeros. And surprisingly, we're pretty damn consistent for a deck that had no real, I guess, meat past level 0. I mean, we ran level 3 combos, and I think I had 2 level 2s in my deck. Just because turns out Machine of Ice is still a good SAO card, and I need a Climax Swapper. So
Wait, was that you run? You have those signed in English or JP?
I have Machine of Ice signed in both English and JP. Same with one copy
Okay.
of Last Shot. I was going to get the playset, but
Mm.
the prices make me want to cry.
Okay, so your one of your cards is worth more than most people's decks in there, except Chan's.
I had the most expensive deck on my team just in
Uh,
one card.
um, okay,
I
so
think I think one of my non-foil cards is more expensive than my teammates' decks because clean cuts are still expensive in SAO.
oh god.
I think my seat C's had the most expensive deck sitting at our table,
I
and
mean,
because
yeah,
he technically had almost max rarity in his bag.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Um, okay, so we'll start talking about the event itself. First thing I would say is I wasn't dying of heat and sweat and being elbow to elbow with 200 other people, or actually with Vanguard, what was there, 600 people in that ballroom in 2019?
Yes.
So we actually had elbow room in this room to walk, room to talk, and room to do stuff. That was uh, very good. Um, the judges did everything that I expected. When I had to call on somebody, he did exactly what he was supposed to do. The only bad, maybe mistake for a judge that I'm aware of was my first round opponent. I had to call them. They got a written. They apparently did the same thing in the finals, but the judges there didn't realize he already had a written, and so he got another written. He probably should have been DQ'd. Um, but I mean, he lost anyway. So
I think two writtens equal a game loss.
yeah, that's what he was saying. But
Depending on depending on the severity, I don't remember the floor rules off the top of my head.
yeah, he did lose anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Um, Anything about the venue, the judges, the event you guys noticed, wanted to chirp about?
I loved
One
how
of
much
the
there was compared to prior years.
more
Now,
space.
if a
Yeah.
specific store in New York would do that for their nationals, I'm not going to shoot any names. It'd probably be a lot more pleasant to do those too.
Yeah, I think everybody in this room and a lot of people who are going to be watching this are going to think the same thing. Especially after I think 2019 was a little bit worse than 2018, and that was a little bit worse than 2017, from what I understand.
It gets worse every year.
It's gotten
Um,
progressively worse
yeah.
since like 2014.
I remember the first year I went, there was at least some walking space, and then the last year that I remember going, I couldn't leave my seat.
Yeah, same.
Oh, I got lucky 2019 Nats. I was on the edge, at the actual end of a table on both of my games, and then went 0-2 and went and got drunk. So,
Damn.
um, so any other observations or notes about the venue or the event from anybody? Patrick, you got
So
anything?
actually,
Oh, Aubrey.
there there was actually an inconsistent ruling during one of my games.
Mm.
So we went into time, we went into turns. Me and my opponent were still tied. Instead of awarding a double game loss, they said first change in damage wins.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's not supposed to be until top eight, if I remember correctly, right? That first change of
Yes.
damage is only supposed to be top eight. Yep, I heard the same exact thing in one of my games because we were really close at the end of turn three. Uh, Actually, there was something else really weird. What was it? Was it Finn, the Adventure Time level three, and something else? Was it
Okay,
a tap
so
counter or
I know
something?
exactly what you're talking about. It's the Adventure Time level 3 Finn versus the level 3 Paul from
Yeah,
Mushoku.
there was a huge
Um,
timing mix-up.
there was a huge timing mix-up. If I remember correctly, the timing mix-up was because Paul activates when, or there was like two questions on it. Because Paul activates when damage is canceled, and Finn had to cancel burn 1
Yep.
attached to him. The initial burn 2 at the end of the attack canceled in front of the Paul. Characters are still in battle, so it triggers the Paul. The questions were, and additionally, the I think the cancel burn 1 was also canceled. So the questions were, does Paul activate before the cancel burn 1, and which cancel burn does Paul trigger off of? So
Yep.
It'd be the
all
first.
so first off, the Paul will trigger off the 2 because the ability can only activate once. So since the 2 is
Yeah.
the one that triggered Paul, Paul remembers that it's a 2 in terms of order. Since it's turn player
Turn player
priority
priority. Yeah.
always, the cancel burn 1 will activate before the Paul
Yeah.
does. Now, I'm not 100% certain if that's exactly what the whole questioning about it was, but I just know it happened to one of my friends out there, and
It's more
that's
of a
about
question
all
is
I can remember.
the whole situation was more of a question of what does Paul trigger off of, because there is no check timing between all of that
Yep.
happening.
That's so.
The check timing issue is the reason why a couple of the judges were saying they're actually going to need to make a floor rule for this specific interaction, and other things that can deal with the same thing with the ball. So expect to see some red text sometime during this season about the ball, probably in English.
Yeah, it's more likely going to be in the Q&A versus being a floor
That's
rule.
true. Yeah.
Well, technically, I'm pretty sure it is already in the Japanese Q&A.
Is it? They said they were going to
Yeah,
go.
it just needs to be translated
Yeah,
over.
the head judge dude said he was going to go check the JP rules after and see if they could just literally copy it to English.
I can actually check that right now while we're talking. If you want to go to the next point.
Okay.
Go
Aubrey,
back to it.
did you have anything else about the event? Judges, Patrick, you have anything?
Yeah, big thing that was a change to this year compared to past years, and I know I was not the only one to notice this because a lot of people agreed with me when I brought it up. The
Oh,
transition
yep.
from round to round, the time was significantly decreased. So it was a much faster tournament, and the flow to the tournament was much smoother than previous years. So props to Bushiroad on that.
Oh, yeah,
Was
what?
very pleased to hit top cut at what was it, like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Oh yeah, it was early. I mean,
Yeah,
the finals was over at what, 6:30, 7, something like that,
Yeah,
something like that.
including the pictures of the pedestals. That was, yeah, everything went really really fast. And actually, you reminded me of something that really annoyed me. I had heard that was going to be reversed before the tournament started, but the having matte oversleeves with the matte side has to be on the side of the effect. That is a really, really strange rule. Both me and Philip had to re-sleeve our decks because we both used KMCs, mat on the back like you would expect, and then they wouldn't let us just, or the judge wouldn't let us just flip them in and flip them out because they didn't like the used KMC sleeves and we didn't have extras, so we had to go buy new sleeves before starting Top Cut.
My sleeves were the same way. I wouldn't have had to re-sleeve if it weren't for one of my sleeves being,
Yep.
I don't want to say marked because then it sounds the wrong way, but during the day while you're shuffling,
Yeah.
then oversleeves can end up becoming unintentionally marked. So that's what happened to one of my sleeves. It was on a 4 of for one of my cards, so technically it didn't matter, but it did matter. So if that one sleeve wasn't altered from its original state, I wouldn't have had to oversleeve and top cut, re-oversleeve, I should say.
Yeah, one of my sleeves had on the left edge the little whiteness that gets down there. If you accidentally scratch it before it splits open, yeah, I had the whiteness on the edge of one of my sleeves too, and so we
that's what it was for me.
Buy new ones. So yeah, he wouldn't. My extra KMCs weren't in the KMC package, so there was no proof that they came the same as the ones in the deck or something like that, and I didn't have an extra pack of KMCs, so I had to get all new sleeves and re-sleeve completely. He said they did have a lot of complaints about the mat on the front side of the cards thing though, and they're going back about it, but they have to wait for US to get to Singapore to get back to US if there's going to be a rule change about it. So
originally the rule change was only there because of the online events.
yeah, so
the mat on the front side of the card, like a lot of these cards, like at least for my deck, a lot of these cards I've not used in decks prior, so I don't remember the abilities like immediately off the top of my head. And since in my deck I was running like 2 different traits, so I make sure it's like, does this go off level 0? Does it say any character? Does it say Avatar, Flucklight, so on and so forth? I can't just tell that at a glance looking at my field, and I have to squint to look through my mat sleeves. So I hope they go back.
I also have memory issues, and I doubt my memory. So a card that I've played a million times, I might look at it just to make sure I'm not going to screw up. Like when people people brainstorm with Roxy, and they forget and just go grab their deck because she's blue, and oops, can't do that. So, did anybody else have anything about the event, judges, venue anymore?
No, everything seemed to be handled pretty well compared to previous years. The sleeve thing was kind of an issue, but I don't own any character sleeves for Mushoku, so I just kind of used Dragon Shields.
Well, it was also an issue, but also not an issue. They didn't DQ people for it. They just make sure. I mean, thankfully there were Old Orchard and the other guys there, and Underground. I think.
Pro Play.
Oh, was it Pro Play? I thought it was Underground. There's Underground there too.
It was
Pro Play, Underground, Pro Play, and Gamers World.
And Gamers.
Yeah.
And they were all there. They all had sleeves, so if we needed them, we at least could have them. So.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on. Anybody have any specific observations or notes about the tournament itself? Not including, getting into the meta, the stuff like we'll be doing later. Aubrey, anything specific you would note about any of your matches or any weird things that you might have seen?
Not particularly. A lot of my matches were kind of the same thing over and over again. It was a rinse and repeat over and over.
You got, how many times did you get the mirror match? 3? 2?
I want to say 6 out of the 9 rounds. 6 out of the 9 games I played.
Were they all 8 standby, or did you get a choice skate in there? Or a choice pants?
It was all 8 standby. The only one I lost to was the one in the first place game, which I won against the second time when it was irrelevant.
Yeah. The only one I can really think of off the top of my head is something that me and Patrick both had in the same match, both within probably about a minute or 2 of each other. We both had to judge call our first round opponents. And his was like 30 seconds into the match, and mine
Yeah.
was like 2 minutes later.
If you heard someone say judge literally seconds after the first round started, that was me. Um, Funny enough, that team ended up getting into top 8.
Yep, they got second.
I won't really say much else for opinions, but the situation was the player was on 8 standby slime and played the 0-0 Soe, discarded a card, revealed the top card of his deck, and then went to search for a card. Picked up his deck, looked at it, and I immediately called Judge. First game of the day, was a little skeptical on it, still early in the morning. I wasn't expecting much. The reason why the game continued was because there was no stock. So theoretically, technically, there was no hidden information from that player because there was only the waiting room, the cards in hand, and then cards in deck. So he had full knowledge of where cards were.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for that, would have been an instant game loss. But make sure that when you guys go to tournaments that you don't make a mistake like that on the first turn of the game. So
Yeah, you don't want to get a written in the first turn of the game and then accidentally do something accidental later, get a second written, and you're just DQ'd.
My favorite phrase in the world, RTFC.
Yeah, I mean, that's why another reason I don't like Matt on the front. I have to reread my cards all the time because I don't trust my own memory. Almost every time I play an amulet, a Magurdat amulet, I almost always look at it to make sure I'm doing it right. I'm always worried that I'm supposed to salvage for some reason.
Big blind attacks, I have to do that too. I'm like, yeah, let's double check.
Yeah. Though, I mean, probably a minute and a half after the judge left Patrick's side, I had to call a judge because my opponent, he played McGurdy Amulet, and or not an amulet. Crap, what that was it? There goes my memory again. Oh yeah, he played the amulet. He looked at his deck before I had a chance to look and see he didn't have blue. And so, obviously, you can't play a blue event without blue in your clock or level zone. So, I immediately had to call the judge. He didn't see anything except at the bottom card. I did stop him really quickly with that judge call, but he got information that he shouldn't have had because this is like turn 4 or 5. We're already level 1, and he has plenty of stock and stuff like that. So, the big thing was that the judge actually would have given him a game loss right away, if not for the fact that it was a clean deck. The only thing that had come out of the deck since he had refreshed was refresh point. And so, since it was a fresh deck, we had both basically seen it before he refreshed, before he shuffled up. So they gave him a written instead. From what I heard, he did the same thing in top 8. Got a written again instead of a game loss. But I want to throw it. I kind of want to put it as like first match butterflies because other than that, I didn't hear about any of them having any weird calls or issues for the rest of the day. And so, I mean, there's a lot of people who get jitters or butterflies in that first, especially in a big tournament like that. Other than that, I can't really think of anything else myself. Anybody else?
I think there was one weird call my team had in round 1, but I didn't ask about it. So, I mean, it was either round 1 or round 3. There was one round that our team had a call, but I forgot to ask about it, or did I really care to ask about it? So, I mean, when you're playing meme decks, you don't really care about judge calls that can affect your team later because you don't expect to do well to begin with.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, so I guess we'll go straight into meta and tournament discussion then. First topic, I guess, would be, was the representation what you expected? For me, definitely. Mushoku almost every single deck. Mushoku in almost every single top 8 deck. I wasn't surprised. Um, there was it was much more specific in Chicago than it was in Ontario or the first two. What was it, Belgium and Germany, I believe. Uh,
Netherlands and
yeah,
Germany, I believe.
every slime deck in top 8 except for one, I believe, was 8 standby in Chicago, whereas other areas 8 choice was more popular. The number one team slime deck was book paints. Um, I believe my first opponent, I got a Mushoku, an Ape Standby Slime, I have this written down somewhere. Why am I trying to remember it off the top of my head? Let's see. My first round was 8 Standby Mushoku. My second was 8 Red Gate Fate against one of our locals. Then I had 8 Standby Slime. Then I had Bandori Christmas Kasumi with Mashiro top end. And
which is
then
another person we know.
yeah. And then Standby Kaguya. And then in the final round, I got that Book Pants Slime deck who was on the first place team. Um, I'm I guess I'm actually kind of surprised I only came up against one Mushoku. I'm wondering if everybody with Mushoku just decided to sit in seat A just for the hell of it. Um, but yeah, what was do you remember what your matches were, Aubrey? You had a couple more rounds than we did.
Yeah, so my round 1 was against Kaguya. My round 2 was against 8 Standby Mushoku. My round 3 was against Choice Pants Bang Dream. Round 4 was against 8 Standby Mushoku. Round 5 was against 8 Standby Slime, which was another local player, one of our locals. And going first game, top cut was another 8 Standby Mushoku. The game in top 4 was against Broderick, who played 8 Standby Mushoku. And then I played against 8 Standby Attack on Adventure Time.
I was going to say, swear if you say Standby Attack on Titan.
You're going to trigger everybody who's watching this damn thing if you say that.
If that ever gets, if 8 Standby Attack on Titan, or if Standby happens to go to Attack on Titan, you will never see me play English again because I'm not dealing with Armin at level 1.
You don't want an Armin at level 1? Come on. You don't.
I've already played the Junio meta. I'm not playing it again.
You don't want the ultimate anti My Little Shido?
I'm not dealing with, if Attack on Titan gets Standby, nope. You'll see me sell all my English decks in a matter of a heartbeat, except for maybe Beaufrey, because I'm in the middle of max rating that.
Well, at the very least, we do have a restriction list finally, so if that happens and it goes away, we think it does, it'll probably finally do something about it. Maybe.
Maybe. They spoil Standby, you're immediately going to see it pick one on that damn restriction list between the 2-1 changer and the Standby. Yeah. Like, you can't have both. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, there's no way you can have both of those together. I played during when Junio was the thing. I'd rather not do that a second time.
Mm-hmm.
I have a buddy who sometimes we build standard decks. We don't build the stupid stuff like you see on YouTube, like the Doctor Strange loop or any of the infinite loops. Now, I really wish I was able to play that because that deck looked like a lot of fun. But he built Weapon Standby, which is basic. He built Weapon Tribal, which is basically Attack on Titan with Standby, and I did not have fun. You know how you play Information Warfare Beaufry against a full field of Hexproof at level 1? You don't.
Yeah, those horrible people. Those horrible people who play that Information Warfare deck.
That was my CC.
Look,
I never had to go against him.
Credit for him getting that idea for me because I got the idea from someone in Europe.
I never had to go against him, so.
My third seat was playing it. Our first game in top 8 was against Kaguya. He was against Kaguya. He yeeted 2 Kaguya's to the bottom of the deck, swung for stick and sucks, and swung for 6 and stuck it.
Oh, that feels so good to do.
I was bitching the whole day. The whole day I knew I was going to come up against my locals, and I'm seat C, so I was going to have to go against that information warfare deck, and it never happened. I just got sacked by Bandorian Kaguya instead. Oof.
Oh, you could have played against me with my deck if you ran into my team somehow.
Yeah, that probably wasn't going to happen. I was on a roll early and then just died. So, uh, let's see. What did you come up against with your crap, Travis? Did you actually have some weird shit come up? Did you come up against any other meme decks?
The weirdest thing I came up against, probably in terms of decks I did not expect to see, was Batman Ninja Villains and 8 Bounce Review. So in order, I played against Konosuba, Salvage Pants. I had no idea if they were running any other Climax because I didn't see it, or I just don't remember. Won that match even after eating a burn 5 from the Explosion Megamine. And he's just like, man, if I knew you were clean, I would have just done this Aqua combo and potentially killed you. I'm like, yeah, but you wouldn't have. It's the fun part because Aqua can't push enough damage in enough instances to kill me. Round 2, I played against 8 Bounce Review, lost that one because staring down 4 cancel burn 2s with only 2 climaxes in deck sitting at level 3. If I win that, no. I had like 20 cards in my deck. I'm not winning that. Round 3 was against which Ruby build was this? Was it 8 Salvage or was it Standby Salvage? It was 8 Salvage. Opponent sitting at 3-2, 4 cards in deck. I have no clue where his last climax is. Last shot, burn 4 sticks. Oh, I guess I went off refresh. Whoops. Round 4, I lost to Batman Ninja Villains because having a gold bar played against you every single turn is not fun. There is no out damaging somebody who's swinging 2s and 3s every single turn.
I've actually never played against villains.
If I was playing a legit deck, it probably would have been a better time. But if for me to actually generate my value, I have to do a lot of side attacking with climaxes. So I'm not pushing enough damage as it is, and I don't want to open up my slots for them to push more damage on me.
Yeah.
So, I feel like in that matchup, because I had this Ronnie and Tease promo that's just a straight pay to rest heal, because the only healers I have in my deck are last shots, and if they get reversed, I'm not doing any more healing because I don't get to get them back. So I had that promo in there for some more assisted healing throughout the game. I feel like I should have played that maybe a turn or 2 earlier because I had it at the start of the game, but that's hindsight at that point. And then round 5 was a win versus Salvage Standby Ruby. That player was relatively new, so there were play mistakes that they made that it was a lot easier to capitalize off. And I did tell them, like, yeah, I wouldn't do that if I were you, stuff like that. But newer player, just play mistakes that are easy to capitalize off of make it easier to win, in all honesty. It sounds really shitty, but it's the truth. You know somebody makes a mistake and you know how to capitalize off it, you take that chance in this game. And that's unfortunately it. We didn't make it to top cut because our team record throughout the entire day was 2-3. But I am happy to say that I don't think any of us had a blowout game against us or against somebody else. All of our games were relatively close. So
to add to that, in a lot of the mirrors against Mushoku, there were blowout games. Like I was a level ahead. Like I was at 2 and they're dying. I was like, okay.
Oh yeah, my battle against Mushoku was a blowout. It seems like newer players who just grabbing it because it's the strongest in the meta don't know how to properly capitalize on it. Like tap counters, they don't know how to properly use those. They don't know how to properly threaten the tap counter. And I mean, I was just running away with it. I had both Gelds and both Bennies out at like turn 4 or 5, and he was still trying to fix his hand because he didn't get that blue to play that amulet at level 1. So
I'm gonna
Um,
turn for a minute. I heard somebody open the basement door.
okay. Patrick, we know you had 8 standby slime first round. What else went on you?
So my day was actually more diverse than I thought it was going to be. But then again, I went into the tournament not knowing if there was actually going to be a, I'm going to say strategy
Hmm.
for the placement of the players on the team. It always seems like a rock, paper, scissors situation, but in that case, I don't think it really matters where you sit.
Well, no, because
But unfortunately, in this tournament, it seemed like about 80% of the standby players were in seat A. I don't really know why, but it'd be what it'd be. So first round, I was against 8 standby slime, as you said. Second round, I ran into a Book Pants 7 Deadly Sins deck.
Burn 4 for the win.
So I lost that game because I disrespected Stock Swap while the kid was on, I think, like 3-hand at level 3.
Oh God.
And those
This is
3
tragic.
cards managed to grab him the Stock Swap that turn without it being in hand. So I lost to what could be said a top deck Stock Swap. So I'm not disappointed in that. It was also that I had 4 climaxes in about 22 cards. So about a 1 in 5, actually a little worse than 1 in 5.
Yeah.
And the stock swap for 10 hit 3 of them.
Oh God.
Sounds like Johnny.
That literally sounds
unlucky situation, but disrespecting the stock swap, I think, was the you could say it was the high role play, but I went with it and ended up getting punished. So be it. Stock swap is, in my opinion, one of the worst mechanics in the game because it punishes good play. But anyway, going into round 3.
On top of that, sorry, I wouldn't necessarily say it's the worst mechanics. If you combine it with a Fumio, now we're talking. Like, Stock Swap and Fumio on their own aren't that bad, but if you combine the both two, yeah, it's just like, alright, my stock's clean, I got a decent amount of stock, oh, well, I guess I lose because effects.
I understand what you're saying, but in a vacuum, Stock Swap punishes clean, correct play, which no other ability should really be able to punish.
Superstars does it.
Well, I mean,
oh yeah, no.
Yeah,
Don't get me wrong. There's a ton of tech nowadays that does the same kind of situation, but from the first time they printed Stock Swap, it's been a mechanic that I've hated coming up against.
It can be so much nastier. Especially, I did a stock. I had 20 stock and did a stock swap Fumio against an opponent last week, and bye.
But anyway, going to my round 3, I played against Choice Pants Bang Dream. Round 4 was against 8 Standby Adventure Time. Round 5 was the Mirror 8 Standby Mushoku. And top 8, I also played, unfortunately, Roderick, and lost the Mirror 8 Standby Mushoku. So.
Yeah, me and Aubrey's locals were like 2 months. That's half of the people we saw were playing the freaking blue 70s deck, and for some people that deck just it just die. You just die for no reason. You can be 1 in 3 and you're gonna eat 3 burn 4s and die. Same thing happened to one of my English only locals with somebody who played that deck a lot, and Clinton Chan does it to me a lot too. I just eat all the burn 4s and just die. But burn 4's making a comeback, I guess. We got Shizu and Hendrickson kicking people's asses now.
Look, burn 4 has always been around since the last shot seen on. There's a reason you never see that finisher change.
Was she the first one?
I mean, just saying, 4's a really good number.
Was she the firstborn for?
I don't think she was the first in English.
The first in a major deck? The first in a beastly deck?
I would say she's probably the first consistently used burn for.
Yeah, I think there's ones pretty seen on, but I don't think any of them were ever played.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do some research while
Because-
which I
I
couldn't
do play a lot of older decks.
I couldn't find anything on that poll on the Japanese side of the game, probably because there really isn't any effects that really bring that situation up in the Japanese side of the game, because Adventure Time's an English original set. So it's not really brought up in the Japanese side of the game because it's not you can't find Adventure Time on the Japanese side of the site. So unless they print something like that in a future, unless they print something like the Finn in a future Japanese set or in Toy Story or whatever the Pixar All Star, Bunko, etc. set that they're printing is, I don't think we'll see a true resolution of that. So that's probably going to be on the English side of the game if we ever.
Unless
see
somebody ran into
Each
it with like
each has a prime
Yami.
example of that is the double cancel burn.
Yeah.
Could somebody run into that with a Yami and JP maybe?
Yes.
If anybody actually still plays it in Japanese.
Yami and Ichika are the best two examples in the Japanese format that do double burns that happen at timings. Or happen at the same timing.
I need to check one other card because I think there might be another example. Give me a second to pull this up.
Sure.
This one. I just can't remember if it's double or single burn.
I don't know which can't think of any sets.
Oh, no, it's only single burn. Okay, never mind. Yeah. So Yami and Ichika. Yeah.
Paul specifies on your opponent's attack, right?
Yes, during the battle involving him on your opponent's turn.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, otherwise it might hit on the, what was it, reflect? Yeah, but that won't work. I was also kind of surprised. I mean, every table I walked past all day, if I wasn't playing, Mushoku, on probably a lot of times both sides. I'm really surprised at how, like Patrick said, how diverse our opponents were. I didn't play the same deck twice all day. I only played the same set twice, and that was two different slime decks, 8 Standby and Book Pants.
I think we're an outlier to what most of the experience was.
Yeah.
I actually have a friend who, I don't know what seat he was in, but did not make top cut, but in the 5 games his team played all 5 against 8 Standby Mushoku. So that is that's one polar side of the experience, and I think ours is an outlier because I'm pretty sure, if I had to guess, the majority of players played against 8 Standby Mushoku at least 1 to 2.5 times that tournament.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see official representation numbers from Bushi to see if 85, 90, 95% of the teams did have Mushoku, and that's why it was on 7 of the top 8 teams, or if it's lower than that and it actually did better than its representation overall. Slime is another one, but at the same time, like I said, Slime is much more diverse than Mushoku. Slime has 4 different decks that are showing up at every Springfest so far. Chicago was the first one that had more than one 8 Standby in the top 8. Everyone else had old school Pants Brigade and a lot of 8 choice at the other events, it seems.
I saw one other Mushoku deck the whole day that wasn't 8 Standby, and that was on a round 3.
Yeah, I never saw a bar. I never saw a choice pants all day.
I saw 8
Connor,
choice pants.
I know Connor was on a choice pants. So
Yes, he was. Yep. I never got to see anything with their team. They were actually, I didn't see them until the end of the day, I don't think. I want to say I was pleasantly surprised at the amount of Bang Dream that I saw. I knew it wasn't going to be a lot, but I also knew, I mean, Waifu Love, and it's, again, Mashiro is pretty good at punishing good play. So there's a lot of people that would want to play her if they think they're going to run into Slime and Mushoku and stuff like this, generating a lot of good stock. So
It's also a very hard deck to play against,
Yeah.
even when you've actually played every card that you've seen.
Yeah.
So I played Bang Dream in Japanese, and I'm going, yeah, this is a giant pain to sit across from.
Oh yeah. And yeah, Standby is definitely still holding, or Standby Kaguya is definitely still holding up. Obviously, it's not quite as powerful as it was before the restriction, but it still gets the job done.
There is a second set coming.
Yeah, from what it looked like, it didn't have much representation because of the restriction list. Same with Data Live.
The restriction list honestly killed the most consistent part of that game, which
Yeah.
was its level 0 into level 1 game plan. The restriction list. Do I think the restriction list was necessary in Japanese? Yes, because that deck was surprisingly extremely consistent for how it worked, or at least it is in Japanese meta. Do I think they should have copy pasted the list in English? Probably
Yes.
not this early.
Yeah.
Data Live, it was coming. I'm kind of
Oh, yeah.
glad that the Data Live list is at least different from the Japanese list, but the Kaguya list looks like they didn't even try.
That might be the best thing about Data Live coming to English. That's probably the reason we have a restriction list now in English.
Yeah, so for the reason with Kaguya, it's because if you look at it, all the topping decks for Kaguya were all playing the same cards, and its conversion rate was stupid high going into the online events. So they kept that because if they didn't, Kaguya would actually be able to surpass stuff like Mushoku online.
Yeah, I really wonder with the
because I've been seeing the data. Kaguya's only appearances, or it topped once in Europe, and that's it.
and Bro, I think it wasn't it still top 5 conversion? I think it was like 5th or 6th, something like that.
It was 5th.
It really surprises me that Slime did not get on the restriction list. I mean, it had what, the second highest representation and second highest conversion after 8 Standby Dow.
So, can I say something about this?
Sure.
Slime, and there will be people who disagree with me on this, and I understand, but seeing how these decks have played out, granted, the environment is different in the Japanese game, but seeing how the game plans have played out ahead of the sets being released in English, Slime does not need to be restricted, and the restriction on Kaguya in English, the main issue with it was that there was no transparency on why it was hit. If there was transparency, then most of the people that I've spoken with about this in the community would have been fine with it being hit because they understand why it's actually getting hit. It's just there was no explanation, there was nothing said until later on, but I don't even think that's... I can't remember if someone from Bushiroad had said it on Reddit, if I heard that right from one of my friends. But either way, when the announcement came out, the lack of transparency on that restriction was what caused the big uproar.
Yeah, because I remember Connor asking on Twitter for an explanation because the data that he has for it does not support it. Like, he can understand if it was Data Live levels of representation and conversion, because
it was high, but it was nowhere near Slime or Dow. Yeah.
At least that's supported. Meanwhile, there was only one Kaguya top in all of Bro, and that was in Europe. I think the next highest placings after that was 19th and 60 something. I can't remember the Twitter post off the top of my head, but the data that he has for it does not support the ban, or does not support the restriction. And the only answer he got off Twitter, I could probably find it, it'll take me a couple minutes, is basically a cookie cutter response like, we can't give you this information kind of thing. We're monitoring the tournament scene closely, and if we see a need for change, we'll change. Just the basic cookie cutter response.
It was a preemptive restriction, which was from the numbers unjustified, but there was no transparency. So if something was said that, yes, we're doing this because X happened, so we're expecting Y to happen, so we're preventing that from happening ahead of time, that is the wrong way to take care of it, but that would have at least provided an explanation for it.
Yeah.
It could also be that they plan to announce the second set. So.
But even so, you have not given the set enough time to have an effect, if any, in the environment, so you don't know what effect it may or may not have.
Yeah, like Travis said, I mean, it had good conversion for top 24 and top 12, stuff like that, but it only had one actual top. It was fourth in representation. It had like 12% top 4 or top 24, but only one got in the what was it, top 4 or top 8. Whereas everybody knows, 8 standby data live just took the whole stupid thing, except the one that Information Warfare took the whole stupid thing. But
yeah, you're
he got some really really good rolls on who his opponents were through the whole tournament.
Yeah, like the deck, the Information Warfare is a very strong deck, and in a heavy standby meta,
especially in this
very
meta,
correct play do, but its strength is primarily against standby.
Yeah.
If it runs into 1k1 decks, if it runs into decks that can actually push more damage in a standby deck can push, then it's going to have a rough time. At least from my experience.
I would say it was
playing it wrong, but
yeah, I would say it was a lot stronger in Chicago than it was in the previous 3 events, because there was so much more 8 standby slime and more 8 standby Mushoku. There was hardly any choice pants Mushoku, hardly any 8 choice slime, stuff like that in Chicago. It was almost all 8 standby, and God, I don't even want to guess how many teams had 2 8 standby decks or an 8 standby and a 4 standby deck in Chicago.
Well, I have the data. Well, one of the couple data tweets involving the Kaguya restrictions. Kaguya got hit at 12.5% of top 8 in Bro, which, if I'm doing my math correctly, that means I guess there was one Kaguya in every single region. Mushoku is currently sitting, and this was in the 18th of April, so I'm not sure if this takes into account Chicago or not yet. Mushoku is currently sitting at double that in a format where 2/3 of the room cannot even use it, and has been on over 3/4 of the top 8 teams. So the percentage I have, there's been 24 Mushoku decks. It's been 25% of all decks, and a little under 26% of all the decks in the room, and over 77% of the teams are using Mushoku right now. Whether it's true 8 standby Mushoku or choice pants Mushoku or insert build of Mushoku here.
We have seen standby bar.
Yeah, there was a standby bar. I think the first event had top 8 had 6 Mushokus. The second one had 5 out of 8. The third one had 6 out of 8. Chicago had 7 out of 8. That's a lot of Mushoku. Second highest top 8 representation so far, I believe, was Slime. And then I want to say, was it Bang Dream after that? Because it was in like 3 or 4 decks. Let's see. There was only one Goblin Slayer in top 8, 2 Adventure Times, 2 Kaguyas, 2 Dals. So there was Mushoku, then there was Slime, then there was this had 2, 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 all the way down the list. So I can't really say this surprised me at all. I mean, I've been telling everybody that almost every team in the top cut was going to have slime and Mushoku in it in some way, shape, or form for months, because that's what, I mean, pretty much we all knew that was going to happen. And we all thought the third was going to be, information warfare or some kind of 8 bounce anti-meta or a Kaguya or a Bang Dream, possibly Goblin Slayer, Fate, stuff like that. And that's typically how it wound up happening. Um, I can't really think of I can't really think of anything I was surprised about except that I actually saw a Christmas costuming. I did not expect to see that in an English event ever again.
It was max rarity too.
Yes, it was. Yeah, that deck was pretty to look at.
Not pretty to sit across from.
Mm-mm. No, it definitely was not very fun to sit across from. What was the other Bang Dream that was in Top Cut?
Choice Pants.
Choice Lisa, yeah. What were the Dows? Oh yeah, there was an 8 standby Dow. Our Dow went against it in round 5, I believe. What's it down? Is it 2 Kurumis? Yeah.
One that I saw was max rarity. It was the Brainstormer choice.
That's one that surprised me. I didn't see any Yotsuba Ichika decks. I didn't see a single one all day. There definitely wasn't one in top 8.
So one, round
So
one.
Okay, I found the full thread about the Kaguya data numbers involving its restriction. And dear lord, it's long, so I'm just going to try and find the relative information out of all this. So looking at X and ones, Data Live in AO, Data Live with 26% of the field had 60% of their decks in X and 1 or better. Kaguya at 13% of the field had 20%, and Fate Stay with 9% had 20%. Fate had a lot better of a conversion rate than Kaguya in AO. So EU, Data Live 24 to 40, Kaguya 5 to 20, Ruby 5 to 20, Beaufry 4 to 20. These are all X and 1 or better. NA, Data Live 17 to 33, Slime 12 to 77, SAO 7 to 33, and Love Live Sunshine 1 to 17. Kaguya is not even in North America.
That freaking 8 standby Sal deck was popular in North America.
It's AO top value.
It had a lot. It had a lot of
AO
conversion
value.
too. It had a lot of conversion in North America too. I didn't see a single one in Chicago though. So
I did not see Sword Art at all.
the only
People
sword
are
art,
also because Mushoku's out now.
the only sword art that I saw was our local playing 8 Wind Alice.
So we don't. He doesn't go into the X and 2 data for AO and EU, but for NA, the interesting numbers here is Ruby goes from a 15% representation to 26%, and Kaguya goes from 9 to 5. So if they're going off the data, they're basically making the restriction off of Europe and AO. They're not even looking at NA for Kaguya data, which, if they're trying to hit all, since English is in all 3 of these regions, it would make sense that they use data from all 3 regions to make these, to actually make a perspective. 2/3 of your playing field can convert this deck, and 1% and the other third can't. To me, it doesn't make sense to hit. But it could be preemptive. It could be just because people were complaining about it, like, oh, Data Live gets hit, then Kaguya's gonna do this. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think from the data that we have seen that's available to us, I really think probably Data Live was the only one that really should have been hit. I was kind of for a slime hit, even though I really, really like it in Japanese. I'm not sure it needs a hit in English, especially with the data we have so far. I mean, we're going to see a lot of different data in the next few events, especially after HoloLive comes out. And
what from slime needs a restriction?
if there was going to be a restriction on slime, it was probably going to be like limiting how many Dragobuster you can have, or having
I
like a
disagree.
pick 3 on tech or something like that. The problem is most of the ones that I saw are were kind of too strong.
So
Most of them
the
would like
common
neuter one slime deck, and the other 2 slime decks would just keep doing what they were doing, and there's no reason to neuter one deck out of 4 like that.
so the comments that I've been hearing about slime. Slime is a consistent 1K1 deck, which has its flaws. If you know how to play against it, then it's not a hard matchup to play into. The other comments that I've heard is that Geld is an issue. But if you're saying that Geld is an issue, and I'm not directing this at anyone specifically, I'm saying you're as in the general
Yeah.
stance. If someone is saying Geld is an issue, then they're failing the skill check that Geld is. Geld is a hard skill check that if you don't know how to play against it, you're going to lose if your opponent knows how to play with it. And that's just what it is.
The field counter, right? The sack him, get plus 4K to something.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
Just-
kind of
I don't
a
know
hard.
his time cards by name aside
Yeah.
from Reamer because all I ever hear about is Reamer from somebody in this room.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
but
he's kind of a skill check
Geld
on
is
both
not
sides too. Yeah.
Geld is not an oppressive card in the slightest.
I mean, yeah. I mean,
So if people are saying that slime needs a restriction, I disagree because it can be played into very easily. It doesn't have as much interaction with its 1K1 deck into its opponent. The main interaction is on its standby deck, but even then, as I mentioned, it is a skill check. And if you fail the skill check, you fail the skill check. It's the same thing with Rushia. If you fail the skill check against Rushia, you're going to lose.
Yeah.
It's not an oppressive card.
The,
It's
the
just
TD
how it
Rushia?
is.
Yeah, because if you do not plan to know, like, if you know you're going to potentially send your opponent to level 3, you do not want to leave any cards in your deck. You want to have a clean deck.
Yeah,
You
the
basically
one
want to
that
refresh
puts
one of your
4 damage into your deck. Yeah.
Try 8 to 12.
Well, per
Hololive-
4 per.
Hololive consistently
Yeah.
can get double, if not triple, Rushia off, and you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah, the main difference between the skill checks is that Rushia, for her ability, is highly undercosted in my opinion. But that's a different discussion.
Yeah, that's.
No, I'm not even going to try and argue that on there. Like, sure, let me play this climax. Either get to revive a character and give it power to live, or I'm going to kill my opponent in one turn. It's equivalent of the way I read Rushia is if your opponent has 0 climaxes in deck, put 4 cards into their clock. That's literally how I read that. Because there's no... You can't stop that. You cannot stop 8, 12 cards being shuffled back into your deck that you can't do anything with.
Yeah,
Like,
you don't need extra damage there.
If that
It
card-
just happens on its
If
own.
that portion of the card was a pay one, ditch one, or insert other cost here, like put a card from your hand, like 2 cards from your hand in the waiting room, or like literally any cost to shove cards back into your opponent's deck like that, it'd be fine. But the fact that it's on climax placement, 2 free abilities you don't have to pay a single cost for, and it can come out at level 2 with a specific field condition that you need? Nah. It's undercosted. There's no argument.
I'm actually kind of glad that they delayed it because I don't have to play against it next week in Atlanta.
You wouldn't have had to play it against it next week in Atlanta anyways.
Oh, was it past or it wasn't past? What is it? 2 weeks?
It wasn't past the 2 weeks mark.
Oh,
it
yeah,
wouldn't,
the
it
2
wouldn't be
weeks
past the 2
back.
weeks mark.
All right, so
Anyway,
at this point it's all the way out to June before they can play it in Springfest.
So I apologize for starting this side rant because I think I was the one to get us off topic. I think we should go back to the tournament though. Focus on that. So
Yeah. Yeah, like what you were saying, I actually consider Geld a skill check on both sides too. It's another one where new players playing 8 standby slime, maybe I'm not even sure which one you can, if you get lucky, face roll easier, 8 standby Mushoku or 8 standby slime. But if you don't use your guilds properly, and your opponent knows your how to play against your deck, you're probably gonna get your ass kicked. Um, if you just the same way if you don't use your Megurity amulets properly to load your waiting room with whatever the hell you want right then and there. There were a lot of new players playing 8 standby Mushoku, and from what I heard, 8 standby slime, and they didn't pass a skill check on either one of them. Now, obviously, anyone, if they get lucky enough with either of those decks, they can just steamroll you for no reason because they'll never lose board. But
And standby is a high roll mechanic.
yeah, but if it doesn't high roll and you don't know what you're doing, you just fall flat on your face. Um, maybe not with all of them, but those are the two big ones right now, anyway. As far as everything else, what else did we have in top 8? I already knew about Pants Book. The second place team did have that Goblin Slayer deck. Our Dow guy ran over that. It was Priestess, not Standby. So I mean, I don't care about Priestess if I'm playing Mushoku or Dow, because I'm running Shido on my little Shido in English. So that's
Yeah,
it.
I don't think I would have cared either. If I wasn't going to play the deck that I would have played instead, which would have been Information Warfare, I wouldn't care either. It's like, oh, you got 3 priestesses? Oh, I have 3 Frederikas. Hey,
yeah.
I passed the top check, and you don't insult me anymore.
Yeah, and Frederica only has to press the top check once. Well, Priestess has to do it for each one.
Yeah.
Versus
on attack versus
Climax. Standby slime, Information Warfare. I don't think I saw this one earlier. Who? Let's see. Oh no, that was the Christmas costume deck. Only one adventure time, standby choice, not very surprising. Only one Ruby in our top 8. I was kind of surprised about that. The standby Ruby deck seemed like it was going to be really popular going in. Maybe they all switched over to Mushoku. I don't know. I've played against it a few times. I wouldn't say it's oppressive, but it can be really freaking annoying to play against.
Especially if you run into certain matchups,
yeah.
I don't think your board survives long enough. And if the game elongates, you bleed hand, which means you don't have a consistent level 3. So you have to continuously push damage into your opponent to hit level 3 at a time where you have enough resources, both hand and stock, to get your level 3 combo off. But if that game elongates 1 or 2 extra turns, those resources can disappear faster than you think.
We're assuming we're talking about Ruby here, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the Megumin combo, right?
Yeah, and I know when I say resources, the combo is free. It doesn't cost any extra, but I'm mainly talking about being able to play the level 3s on the stage, because they're probably dying if you stand them by at level 2 into the front row. So either you stand 1 by in the back row, and then have to play 2 plus have the climax at that point. And you have to be able to do all of that without losing the resources ahead of time. Which,
and you may also have to deal with an opponent who is just going to possibly not leave you aboard in the first place.
I mean, you still get the burns off.
Yeah,
even if they don't leave
but you don't. But
you lose out on that one guarantee.
I mean, at that point, it's basically just the same as swinging for 3 and not getting a burn/clock click or whatever else.
Yeah, but
But
even
yeah,
at that point,
yeah.
the burns aren't worth it because you're not generating stock, which means you don't have a follow-up play the next turn when your opponent wipes your board the follow-up.
Yeah, so at that point, I think that I don't do the climax combo at all. I just swing 3 times and hope for the best.
Yeah.
So one of my teammates, he actually has a really interesting 8 standby build for Ruby that I have issues playing against just because it does not seem like he runs out of resources. But he also capitalizes on the fact he's playing 8 standby and runs the 1-0 Atom that just says, hey, you're going to trigger a standby because you're using, because you just use this, whatever the name of this card is, I can't remember, Ironwood something, the general guy. Basically just knowing you're playing 8 standby and using the Atom to just be like, I'm going to sack this card that I'm just going to standby over anyways. Get a card in my hand, and if I see a standby, I replace the field. If not, well, that card was going to die anyways, so he uses that to keep his hand up, and I haven't seen an 8 standby Ruby deck use the Pyrrha, but that Pyrrha is annoying. Like, I hate that Pyrrha, because I never know when it's coming.
Is that level 3 card?
I'm not going to say I'm a good player, but that card is annoying.
5 back. It stands itself.
Yeah.
It's when it's brought out via the climax. It's climax. Pay out the climax, shuffle X cards back into your opponent's deck where X is your field.
Yeah, that card is a little bit annoying.
It's cost intensive a bit because it does cost. I can't remember the cost. I just do know it does have a cost associated to it that's not cheap. But
usually that kind of effect is like pay 1, ditch 2, along those lines, give or take.
He uses it as a knowing full well that the rubies aren't meant to go as early as possible. He uses the rubies very late. He doesn't even stand by them in unless he say, like I said, he uses the Atom, kill off something in the back row just in case that he doesn't have a use for that card in the back anymore. If he gets a ruby back there, then that's one less ruby he has to play on his level 3 turn. But he uses the Pyrrha, not at a level where he's relying on it, but at a level where if he can use it to push damage, he will. Like, if he knows you're out all late, he's shuffling 5 cards back in your deck and dealing you a little damage. Have fun.
Didn't it have some kind of cheap Icy Tail or something like that too at level 3?
It's an on-play Icy Tail.
A white mask or something like that.
It's an on-play.
Oh, that's why. Okay.
There's also the Neo that he uses to basically says, I don't care if you got rid of your field, you have no choice but to give me a field.
So,
well, I think we've pretty much hit a lot of what showed up at this tournament. Do you guys want to talk about what you expect to see from here on out?
Yeah. Honestly, in Atlanta, I kind of expect to see all the same stuff. I mean, there are some of the same people going down there. I really expect to see Mushoku in almost every table. I really expect to see it almost probably every matchup in top 8. Maybe not every team, but every matchup in top 8. Same with Slime. I really don't think we're going to see any difference until Hololive is legal in English. Hololive Mania is going to take over. Not only is it really popular and really waifu, but if I remember correctly, it has some really nasty tech against Mushoku and Slime.
You can still see Hololive because the TDs will be legal.
That's true.
Yeah, the TDs.
And yeah, the Rushia itself is just. I'm just going to throw shit on the table and kill you.
Well, or I'm going to shuffle cards back in your deck. Basically, the TDs itself can build a competitively viable deck. There's like, I think my Hololive deck uses like 3 cards from the booster, and they can easily be replaced by cards from the trial deck.
Actually, that's true. I would not be
Fair share.
surprised. I would not be surprised to see at least 2 Coronet/Rushia decks in top 8.
Actually, no, that's a lie. One of the cards in the booster is highly needed because it's how you can, well, the cards that aren't in the boost, there aren't in the trial decks is the Aqua. That's pay 1, basically put itself to clock to hit your experience condition for the 1/0 Subaru Akatsuki. This level 3 Ayame that is anti-standby altogether. I love this card. And I think the Matsuri, that's a stock swap. I think. It's been a while since I've looked at the card, so correct.
You're right on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I haven't looked at my whole live deck since last year now, so it's been a while. But outside of like those 4 cards, that's it. They're like most of them have replacements in the trial deck that can function as well.
I mean, these, what is it, 6 trial decks, 7?
7.
Different ones that some of them have uncommon and single rare, maybe even double rare quality tech. In the trial decks, there are there's Coronet, there's Rushia, there's the red, I think the red level 1 combo. Is it a typical reverse salvage or something like that?
There's a red level 1 combo in Gen 2?
The Ayame combo.
Yeah, the Ayame is just on attack check top 4. It's a Magro.
Yeah, that. I mean, usually you get a TD for a set. You have a Magro, or you have a Rudy, look at top 3, or you have a reverse salvage or reverse combo, something like that. Here you have your choice of 3 or 4 different TD combos. And then you can go with the Rushia and just really piss off your opponent. You can go try to sack hard with the Roboco and try to kill people level 2. That's my preference because it's stupid and fun. I think there was one other that was playable as well, but it's nowhere near the levels of the Rushia. I don't remember what it was though now.
I think the Kanata was somewhat playable.
It might have been that one.
Not that playable. I might be misremembering. Card pool's way too big. I can't remember half the cards unless they're in the deck that I use. So,
I don't have it in front of me yet. Sorry.
Yeah, it's still in the trunk of my car. Sorry.
I can't wait for the majority of players, once the booster does come out, I can't wait for the majority to go to Rushia and just run over Rushia. People will look at me with that kind of comment, but again, as I mentioned, it's a skill check. So the less diverse of HoloLive decks that there are, the easier it becomes to play into.
At the same time, the first time it shows up, all the new players and English-only players who didn't study HoloLive at all, they're going to try to get a good refresh, and Rushi is just going to kill them. They're just going to leave 1 or 2 damage in their deck and just go, and it's going to be over.
Well, I'm talking about playing into Rushia.
Yeah.
Like I'm very confident playing into Rushia.
Oh yeah, I mean I know people who have studied the deck know, but people who don't, they're gonna leave 1 card in their deck, and they're gonna let you think that you're gonna hit this. I'm gonna get a good refresh. No, Rushi is gonna put 12 cards on top of that card. There's gonna be 2 levels of damage in your deck, and you're gonna freaking die. I mean, new players and anyone who hasn't studied HoloLive are gonna fall for it, and Rushi is just gonna she's probably gonna feast the first event or 2.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if, like considering the high representation of 8 standby that we see, I wouldn't be surprised if instead of going a Rushia route, they go a more defensive route to try and outlive what standby decks can do. Because honestly, like this is me going on one of my favorite tech cards of the entire set. It's the 3/2 Ayame in the booster. Early plays if you have a blue and a yellow card in your clock, and can de-level 2 cards on your opponent's field.
Is that the one
One
that
at a
some
time,
people
not
like
both at
to?
once. So you can hit the same card twice if you're really feeling really spiteful and turn that level 3 into a level 1.
So,
Is that
so
the
that
one?
card is really difficult to play. It's actually harder to early play than you think, and most Japanese lists are actually dropping that card now just because of that, for consistency reasons.
Yeah, it's
It's
a card that I would want to early play anyways, unless I absolutely need to, but at level 3 it can help out.
Is that the
It
one
could
that?
help out, yes, but
You have the Marines that can give soul, not to mention the 1K1 allows you to potentially give yourself better side attack options.
but how is that defensive? How is that defensive is my question, because you mentioned they could go a defensive route, and then brought up the IMA.
Wrong choice of words because I'm still waking up.
I think I heard Travis mention the Sora. Am I right on that?
No, Aubrey mentioned.
Or Aubrey, sorry, Aubrey. My bad.
Yeah, I've seen that deck quite a few times in just our locals, and it's
defensive. Sora. Sorry, like I said, I'm waking up. This is my 8. This is like my 9 in the morning. So.
Yeah. So, and Aubrey brought up the Sora, which is another build. I wouldn't be surprised to see it. I played against it myself, but going along that kind of route, it's not necessarily a winning route. It's a defensive route, but in today's environment, there are too many answers to that kind of card that people can just tech in. And with all of the utility that sets have nowadays, being able to access the response for that kind of card, for that kind of effect, is not hard. So it has more counterplay to it.
Yeah.
Is that Ayame that you guys are talking about? Is that the one that a bunch of people were playing that with like a level 1 and a level 2 or 2 level 1 combos and playing the deck into the Subaru that burns 2?
Okay, you're thinking of the Sora.
Oh, okay.
Because the Sora is a combination of. Well, the Sora is more so a 1. No, sorry, that's not 2 level 1 combo. Sorry, I'm sitting here fried. I haven't seen that Subaru deck that you're talking about, actually.
I saw a few of them. They were fairly similar, and they looked really interesting to play. And they mostly just, it seemed like they mostly relied on the Subaru burner and the Suisei early play healer at level 3, and there was like a couple tech cards at level 3 or something. I've been trying to find it again, and I can't find it now because it didn't look all that good, but it looked really fun.
Because the biggest things I've been seeing outside of the Rushia is a lot of people started swapping to the Marine combo.
love that deck.
Like, they've been still using Coronet Choice, and then using the Marine as their top end instead of the Rushia. And outside of all the fanciness I saw at release, those are probably the most 2 consistent builds that I see.
Do you think the Marine will see play in Springfest, or do you think it's almost all of them going to be Rushia?
Marine will see play. I know people who are going to be playing the deck. Because of all the hype and influence that has evolved around Rushia, that's probably going to be the more common deck to come up against. But those who know how to play the alternate varieties of Hololive are probably going to branch off to those.
People who only study Rushia might not know how to play any of the other varieties of Hololive.
Yes. And there will be a break between Springfest and what we assume will be the fall circuit.
What we hope will be BCS.
Yes, but
hopefully shop challenges will be back.
I have a feeling that Hololive will change between those 2 seasons.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I think but between the 2 seasons, I think the meta is going to change with different Hololive decks and probably Revengers and AOT final season once the standby comes in. Sorry, Travis, I gotta say it.
No, don't even say those words. Listen here, don't even say those words. I don't want nightmares.
Oh, yeah. I mean, for the rest of Springfest,
Oh, and Don Machi coming in too. That will also change up the fall circuit.
Don Machi we're going to see a lot in BCS, but I I don't think they're going to add any more Springfest in July. I think all the ones they're adding in now is in June. So if they add any more, nobody's going to have to deal with Don Machi or Revengers, at least not this year in Springfest.
If they add another Springfest, it might be in Columbus. Because historically,
that would be crazy if they got it back.
They've had a Springfest at Origins Game Fair, which I think this year is in July or August. So it's an even year. Technically, they could do it, but I don't know if they will.
Actually, that's interesting. If they add a... Oh, no, it's not coming out till June 17th, so FGO wouldn't be able to get in anyway because of the 2-week thing. Because that could do some interesting stuff for maybe people who like both Love Live Sunshine and Fate, but yeah. That's for a different discussion.
I hope that some international situations get solved and Canada gets a regional.
Yeah,
I feel bad for their player base, and for those of you that I know in Canada, I would gladly go to a tournament if it was held there.
Yeah, I assume in Rochester you guys do see Canadian players from the Vancouver community, so.
Yeah, all the time.
One thing, going back on a tangent, one thing I never saw all day, and I haven't heard from anybody else, was, I thought people were going to be waifuing and bring Chizuru or Ruka. I didn't see a single rental girlfriend deck all day.
My friend was playing it.
They were.
I'm pretty sure we played against the people Packer was talking about. They had Kagya. It was Kagya.
His locals?
It was Kagya, Quince, and Rag, and I saw it. I was like, oh
wow, that sounds like that does sound like a waifu team.
So unfortunately, and please again correct me if I'm wrong. I'd rather be correct. I would rather be told I'm wrong than just say this. Unfortunately, with Rent a Girlfriend, it has a lot of interesting stuff, but its level 1 combos are yikes.
Oh, like Cardcaptor Sakura in English. A lot of interesting tech and not a single useful level 1 combo.
Pretty yikes. With the most consistent one, I'm not saying this because I like the character involved with it. No, this is just the only one that I've actually had like decent success with. Is the Sumi that can early play if you have the Brainstormer in your level. Since it's a potential +4, and all I have to do is pay 1, sack the. I think it's pay 1, sack the climax. On reverse, unfortunately, it's on reverse, but there are cards that can help boost its power up to where it's easier to get a reverse versus the Chizuru that's just 8k, 9k with the climax with +1 and a filter. This is a potential +4 and being access to standby. You have ways to keep it large and in charge. Plus, its early play package is fantastic, but the issue that deck has until now, because thankfully they released the promo for Springfest to make it work, is the 2-1 promo from Springfest that gives you a standby target besides your back row. Because its standby targets aren't that very great either.
It had a 2-2 that didn't have any 9-bar.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, don't get me wrong, but it's not...
Yeah, when they showed me this card, I thought that was going to be kind of interesting. It looks like a really interesting tech card for the deck.
I don't think the deck really cared about triggering the standbys. The standby was there for the combo for the 2-1, and at level 2 up. I don't think standbys at 0 or 1 really influenced that deck.
No, literally the standby was for the combo, but if you needed to use it to bring something out, its selection of outside of the combo, just to get it out of your hand if you can't discard it or something. It didn't have a great selection of standby targets.
I think the issue with that, and now we're getting into a set that was released in Japanese in, what was it, 2021 or 2020?
It was almost
2020. Yeah. It was one of the, if not the weakest set to be released during that year.
It was
The utility in general of that set is a much lower quality than other sets have and received.
Far too inconsistent. Far too inconsistent. I mean, I sit against Rental Girlfriend if I'm playing 8 Standby. I don't care about Rental Girlfriend because if they're playing Chizuru 1 and 3, there's a decent chance they're gonna blow through resources all game, and if they have any problems getting those stupid events in the memory, they're done. The Sumi, not really too crazy worried about them getting too many reverses against Mushoku or Slime or whatever I might be playing at the time. So I assume we're probably not going to see any more representation of that than we've already seen in Atlanta.
Yeah, we literally Japanese went from Kaguya to Princess Connect to Rental Girlfriend in the beginning of 2021 in January. Couple sets later, ignore the SAO set. Well, actually, no, the SAO set was actually kind of nice in Japanese because we had a 10th anniversary there.
Yeah.
And then Shiny Colors and Slime 2.
And then
Kaguya,
Sakura.
on its way up.
Then we got those Sakura Wars there too.
I don't see Sakura Wars in this timeline.
It might have been the year before.
Yeah, it was the year before.
Sakura Wars
It's the person who bought some of these really bad decks. I bought both of those, and yeah, it felt like an insult.
Yeah, we see Konosuba, Sakura Wars. Here comes Key 20th putting Charlotte on the map after years of neglect. Lost Decade.
Yeah,
Fate,
Dal happened.
Ain't Alive.
Dal was a thing.
Yeah, man, I still want to find it.
So here's the hope for me. Okay, so I'm going to inhale a whole lot of copium here.
Nah, this is
So
hope.
I hope you guys are okay with this. For those of you who bought Rent a Girlfriend either in Japanese or English, wait for the second season to be released and hope to God that we get a second set announced.
Yes.
Please.
Like if that happens, then hold on to your cards and reel in the stonks.
Oh yeah, I waifu sets. It seems like never stay bad. I assume. I mean, Quince 1 was okay. It wasn't any insane, but it was pretty good. But the fucking Nino and the Yotsuba level 3 from I guess you could also say the Miku level 3 from Quince 2 is gonna make things pretty crazy. Any one of those three could really do some damage in BCS or Springfest next year.
So I'm actually really looking forward to Quince 2 because it's the only reason I bought Quince 1 in English, because they have one card and has my favorite kind of ability in the world, because I like having cards in my hands.
Oh,
Your
okay. I know exactly what card it is.
Your max hand power is increased by 1. It's the only reason I bought the Quince. And I bought it because of the characters. I bought into it because, hey, look, this card increases my hand size. I want it.
So, going into, what is it, like 4 or 5 more events, we probably expect to see some HoloLive TDs next week, and 2 weeks after that, probably see HoloLive Booster. What do you guys think on the triumvirate or quadrumvirate, whatever the hell that would be, from before COVID? Suba, Yellow, Red, AOT, Love Live Sunshine, and I guess I really shouldn't include Sal in that anymore, but I mean, most people don't know how to pilot either of the Sal decks right now, and everybody who does has moved on to new stuff, but
So,
are we talking decks or are we talking sets?
specifically the decks, like Love Live Sunshine, I don't know if it was surprising that it has like 3 or 4 top 8s or not because of the cost of the deck. But
those who play the deck know what the deck does and know what it's capable of.
Yeah.
Those who haven't played enough with it will what's it called?
Underestimate it.
Will underestimate it.
Me and Patrick were both at one point considering playing it on our team. So I mean, honestly, I think it's going to have. I think Love Live Sunshine, if it's on the right teams, is going to have a really high conversion rate. because of the fact that if you know how to play it properly and you're not playing against a hard counter to it, it's going to do Love Live Sunshine things still all these years later. It's going to start killing you from level 2, and you're going to have a bad time. Unless, you manage to stick them to 1-5 and then do a buttload of damage and hit them straight to level 3 or something like that right away. Or like in my games, you damage me to 2-1, and that last damage is always Rico. So, but yeah, I agree with Patrick. I think Love Live Sunshine is still a strong deck. Maybe not as much in BCS as in Springfest. We'll see. But I think it can still do some damage.
I think it's fine. I think it's weaker than it has been before.
Oh, yeah.
Because
the Chica's power isn't as good as it used to be going into 8 standby, but that's not as much of an issue as,
It can be an issue if your opponent knows how to play into it. But as I mentioned, a lot of people underestimate it.
In one of our casual matches, what the hell was it that you killed? You put a third Yo in the back row just to have Chica kill something. I forget what it was.
I don't know, but I hit 17-5 on my
Chica. 17-5. Okay, so about yellow-red AOT, in my opinion, the good pilots that have won Worlds with it multiple times can still do damage with it, but they're not going to play it anymore because they recognize how it's not getting the power levels it needs quite as much now with the 8 standby meta. And they've moved into 8 standby, they moved into Slime, they moved into Mushoku, they moved into stuff like that. What do you guys think about Aaron Mikasa AOT in Springfest?
I think it's more relevant than it used to ever be right now. Once it gets further support, I think the deck will be fine again, but currently it can't handle some of the decks that are running around.
Yeah.
I think it's in a rough situation. I'm going to be honest, I think there's a much better AOT build. I haven't seen anyone play it yet, but saying a much better build, I'm still putting it underneath a lot of the decks that are appearing right now. So,
AOT, do I think it's strong in a vacuum? Yes. Right now,
yeah.
There's a lot of stuff. Aubrey mentioned this. There's a lot of stuff it can't deal with. Now, will it take games against people who don't realize what it does, since it is, as of right now, it is still a relatively older set that you can't find that well?
Yeah.
Yes, it will take games against players who do not recognize what it does or know how to play around it.
Don't recognize that at least one of the errands can get to like 10-5.
Now, will it have a resurgence once the reprints come out? Probably, because the cards will be relatively more available. And we have yet to see what they are giving us in the set. Now,
PRs.
Yeah, all we have so far is the PRs that are all core.
Trait.
And we got the 2 TDs that are
Yeah.
TSPs that are off trait. So we assume the TDs are probably going to be off trait. They're not going to be core.
Yeah,
Otherwise, why have new
no
TDs?
clue what the set has to offer, other than
We don't know if it's going to be Memory Snow, if it's going to be Alicization, or if it's going to be half core, half the new trait. And if there's a single standby in there, it doesn't matter. A single standby.
If they know this set, I'm going to lose my mind.
I'll laugh my ass off if it happens.
Honestly, that's the only way I buy into it is if it's completely trait locked like Meme Snow, or like Alicization, it's completely trait locked except for like 2 cards or 3 cards or something like that.
I think there's 2 things that Mem Snow references, which would be hysterical. The first thing being that trait lock, but also being if they, and this is a tech that could be released in it. I don't know if it will be. We won't know until spoilers come out. But if they get something that is anti-ping 1.
Yeah, that's the funny thing about Meme Snow. Anti-standby and anti-ping 1, but the set sucks, so it doesn't work.
Well, I can't wait for the anti-ping 1 to be core trait. So people still can't play it with Mikasa.
Yeah.
I just want to make the Mikasa irrelevant. The card is so annoying.
I don't think it's that bad.
I just want the Armin.
Then again, I've been a Sunshine player for the past 7 years.
I want the Armin to go away. That's all I care about. I want the fucking Armin to go away.
Oh yeah.
Playing the Japanese, and then I moved away from Sunshine, and I grabbed something else, and I played Persona for 4 years.
So
Not a good idea.
I think in English, Sunshine is probably still, if we go A, B, C, D, I think it's still somewhere around high B to mid A, I think.
Yeah, that's roughly where I was thinking. I played the deck a lot.
Yeah.
It has closing power, but
it has free closing power from level 2, which is its strength, I think, and the Chica combo at level 1 can kill 1/1 heiresses and stuff like that, or if you don't like that for some reason, you can, play 2-soul and side in, but
2-soul is fun.
2-soul is fun when you hit 6 and it actually hits, and then your opponent just goes shit.
Well, I say 2-soul is fun because it's the only
but
I'm able to make, because that's what I can find, because I'm not paying $50 a copy for that 1-0.
Is that expensive now?
Yes.
I have no clue. That's just the last price I remember.
From what I've seen, they keep going up because people don't often sell the deck. When they do, it's people like me throwing $450 at the auction center to get it because I've always wanted it. And it was so underprinted.
I'm sitting on a gold mine of them.
They're not as much as the first set cards.
Yeah.
So I bought the core of the second of the deck. I bought the core pieces, which is the second year combo, for like maybe $80 right as COVID hit, and that was 4 of each.
Yeah, I got mine basically meta Chica level 1 set or deck with a bunch of extras, and I threw like $450 at it on the auction center. So I mean, the prices are not going to go down because they're not going to reprint it. They're not going to reprint anything Love Live in English ever. So, and it was already, was it the EB or Volume 1 or both that were underprinted in English? And so hardly anybody got it.
Well,
EB
came out with a bunch of damage cards.
Yeah, the EB had production issues and damaged a lot of cards as you open the packs.
Okay.
And the only way to, get them fixed is to send literally everything you opened out of the box back to Bushiroad. And by the time stores realized how much of the cards were damaged, or by the time stores realized how much of the cards were damaged, they didn't even bother.
Yeah, I actually have a couple of damaged units. I have 3 that are in good condition, and I have 3 that are not.
Yeah. So, going into AOT, honestly, unless it is a very, very, very good pilot, one of the best, I'm honestly, in this meta right now, I'm putting it in C or D tier. It has lost a lot of power for me, the red-blue deck, going into this 8 standby meta and some of the other crap that's out there. And even a really, really good pilot, if any 8 standby deck goes off for 1 turn, they're going to have trouble playing the game. So, where would you guys think you would rate that AOT deck now for Springfest for teams?
High B, low B, and going into high C. Unfortunately, it has lost most of its relevance because it is kind of behind.
It's figured also suck.
Yeah.
I would say B plus to mid B. It's almost that borderline A because of some of the things it does have access to that is still really good.
The Armin.
But it's lacking a lot of the stuff that it needs to deal with today's meta.
Like Travis said before, in a vacuum, I still put the deck at S. You can walk into a locals with that and run over everything unless you get one hard counter that just fucks you right there. And that's not that as an X1. I mean, you still do well with that.
Hate to say, but I disagree.
Well, I'm mostly speaking strictly English right now. Walking into an English locals, I think if other stuff if there isn't a hard counter to it in the room, it's still a very good deck, unless it's piloted by an amateur. When AOT piloted by it has a skill check to it to play it properly. Is there anything you wanted to say about it, Patrick?
I just agree with Aubrey on its placing.
Okay.
I don't think it's that good of a deck anymore. The strength of it was the solitaire that it had, and it still has, but it just doesn't contest the board as much anymore. So it will more often lose resources starting at level 1.
Yeah.
Ranked it very low. I ranked it
Yeah.
high B, going into low C.
If we're considering that it's S tier, high B is actually pretty low. If we're considering SAB, not S tier at the top, not A tier at the top, then yeah, high B is still.
I'm ranking it really low.
Really?
Because the last time I saw the deck, it was essentially null and void.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while since I've seen the deck, so I can't really say anything. The last person who owned AOT near where I live was Will, and I played it 0 times because I own all these English sets, and then all of a sudden I'm sitting in a regional and going, "Why am I playing SAO when I have access to all this other stuff?"
Because you keep buying everything.
Bread and butter.
That's all I know how to play. I'm a one trick.
Well, yeah, use it to your strength. That's what most people should be doing in tournaments, and then you see all of these teams using decks like Mushoku who don't know how to play it properly, and they're dropping games.
Nah, but the only reason I got rid of AOT is because there's just other stuff I'd rather play. Like, I played against that deck way too much, going from when it used to be owned where I was like, I don't even feel like playing this deck because I played against it way too damn much. So I got rid of it, and I regretted it because the card tripled in value after I got rid of it, and now I don't regret it as much.
So, a deck, well, I guess 2 versions of the same deck, kind of. 3 versions of the same deck, kind of. I don't think it converted a single. Whoa, I missed that. There was an 8 standby for Jimmy that converted? Holy crap. I'll come back to that. We don't need to talk about that.
There's a Jimmy player in Chicago, excuse me?
No, in Ontario.
I know of one. He was on my team.
Konosuba. There wasn't a single conversion with Konosuba. Obviously, we know the problems Union's going to have in this current meta. She's not going to be able to get very many reverses. We know the issue with the Megumin, it's a decent card, but unlike a certain card in a certain set that's getting a second set that's going to make the fucking restriction list screwed, it's not on a bar.
Third. It's the third set. They're getting a third.
Oh yeah, third. So Megumin is on a door instead of a bar. So it's nowhere near as easy to keep rolling her over and over and over again. The Megumin, whether it's eroded or not, isn't as strong as it used to be. But Konosuba is still magic. It puts all the climaxes on the bottom of your deck when it burns 5 and you die. So, and then there are the skilled players who can spend do Yu-Gi-Oh! 10 minutes on one turn to kill you from 2-1 or 2-2. Honestly, I'm surprised. I'm kind of surprised I didn't see a single one at all day. I can't say I'm surprised that it didn't top
It's not
because of
available.
the fact that that and all the Konosuba players are probably now playing Slime or Mushoku or Kagui or something like that.
It's not necessarily that, it's its availability. Do you know how much that deck goes for?
Was it
How was it last I saw?
was it set 1 or set 2 that got a reprint in English?
Set 1, set 2 never saw the reprint.
So that's why, because the deck needs a lot of set 2 cards, doesn't it?
It needs a bunch of set 1 cards too.
Yeah.
You want to know how much that Mesmerizing Aqua goes for?
Too much.
The last
50,
I
60,
saw
70, 80,
was
90, up to 100.
it was a year ago. It was 180.
Last I saw, it was hovering at 100 per.
Yeah, it was what was it 185 a year ago, something like that, and then it started coming back down.
Too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, last I saw the deck sell was like, I think $1,000 or $2,000, and it was no foils, no nothing. It was all base rarity.
Jesus. It's even worse than Sunshine and Meta AOT now.
I remember getting my Konosuba deck with and managed to get it at a deal because it's like, well, they're probably going to announce re-edit, and then they
didn't.
And then a week later, I sacked you with my GGO deck at a shop challenge.
I was actually borrowing the deck at that point.
Oh, that wasn't. You didn't have it yet.
No, I was borrowing.
Oh, I thought that was like right after you bought it.
No, I was borrowing it from someone else because I just wanted to play something else besides SAO, in all honesty.
I think the deck's early game and mid game is too weak for today's environment. So that's the main. So other than availability, that's the reason why it's not being
you
seen.
can't get the resources that you need for that OTK level 2 turn in this current meta.
Yep.
And the Aqua level blue, the blue deck is fun to play, but it's just not strong enough in this meta. And people would rather play much stronger decks, I think. So, Konosuba, instead of a deck, because there's like 4 different builds we could think of as a whole, I think I rate it at mid C because it could still randomly go off and kill you from level 2 if you just sack a little bit. Or sack a lot, I guess, but
Mid C, low C is where I would put it. It's in the same position Attack on Titan is, where it needs newer pieces to kind of get going, which is not going to get it.
Right.
Let's see. Out of anything that was released before COVID came out, do you think there is anything other than Love Live Sunshine that could get into A tier in the current meta for Springfest?
Released before COVID.
Maybe Persona 5 if you run into
if
you run into people that you can actually reverse.
I played that deck. No.
Even if you can get reverses.
Yes, so you automatically lose to any of the standby decks because you have no way to climb over like 9K.
Every single one of the standby decks, yeah.
Yes. So every standby deck you kind of just lose out to because you don't have the whole entire deck relies either off sitting off of the 1/0s that change into the facing different colors or playing off the 2/1 Joker. Without being able to do that, the deck just kind of nosedives.
So you're only going to get one, and that's when the one that you bounce, basically.
Maybe
if that.
Last time I played it was pre-set 2 slime coming out, and the only reason I was even halfway doing well in the game was because I kept eating stuff off the board.
Yeah, and I think I still sacked you and won that game.
Yes.
Wait, was that the same day that we did our 8 standby mirror Dow test?
Yes. Yes, it
and
was.
We were both playing relatively quickly, and it still took 45 freaking minutes.
Yeah.
That was horrible. Yeah, me personally, I mean, I haven't been playing nearly as long as you guys. Love Live Sunshine's the only one that I can think of, except random Bang Dream decks. There is a lot of old tech in some of the new Bang Dream decks, but other than that,
there's only one set. I wouldn't say that it can. It would move up in a ranking base, but if we see it top once or twice, I wouldn't be surprised. And that's Faco.
That there too.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I don't think it's as great as some of the more recent sets, but it can have a good day
until Camelot
and
comes
it can
out.
pop off. So
Camelot's gonna be fun to see in English. Forgot.
Camelot didn't have any impact in Japanese. It hasn't done anything.
Okay. Regular Fate. Either 8 bar or 8 red gate, 8 door.
Not as good as it used to be.
I think 8 bar has the issue of it's Shimikaze, right? Shimikaze level 1. You need to reverse against a standby meta.
I think it only climbs to like 6K. I don't think there's any bonus power in Fate.
Now the bar fixer is still pretty strong, but the problem is that level 1 combo, I think. And there's the fact that if you run into Dow, your riders just don't matter.
How much have you guys played against Fate currently?
I'm the only Fate player in my locals.
I have not. I've hardly played against it at all with 8 standby. We played against 8 standby or 8 bar Fate a lot when it came out in JP. Me and Aubrey did.
Yeah. When it was brand new a lot.
Yeah.
So I think you guys need to reevaluate Fate at the moment.
There's one thing.
It's stronger than what I'm hearing you guys are giving it.
Well, there's one question mark that I have about it. Is, With Rider, 8 standby, you don't get any lucky sides. You don't get any lucky damage from side attacks. Um, I don't know if you think that goes into how it would rate at all against 8 standby, but I mean, how high can the Rin climb? 7.5, 8K? She should be able to get at least.
8, 5, maybe 9.
Unless your opponent
Maybe.
high rolls really hard, she's probably still going to be getting what, at least 1 or 2 reverses if they can get that many out. So, and the big issue is 2 cards: the Archer and Rin, the pre-fresh, and the one that takes a trade off. It fucking kills slime right away.
Yeah, those are the cards that I've taken into fact when I'm saying like how good I think it is. So because I play Fate, or I have played Fate quite a bit, so the 8 bar deck isn't as relevant as it used to be. Taking the traits off stuff will actually end up giving you a chance to kill things if they don't have a counter. But I haven't seen it enough lately to make that as a full decision on that.
I think the general opinion is that it's not strong enough anymore, so the Fate players again move to Mushoku, Slime.
That's not necessarily true.
You
guys know that in Europe, the 2 tournaments that have happened in Europe, the same person who's been on the winning team for both of those events has played Fate.
Wasn't that 8 door? Not 8 bar? 8 door, I have a completely different opinion of 8 door. I have a completely different opinion of 8 door because that deck is practically solitaire and you get free 6 card freaking Icy Tails. So,
the only issue I have with Fate is like I don't get to play against it enough, and even though I have it, I don't have everything to build the decks because I can't afford the pieces. So I don't honestly have an opinion.
Yeah, there are some.
It has a paywall because the brainstorm would be so expensive.
The brainstorm and isn't the Ilya early play healer, is that still expensive?
Yes.
I know the Akatsuki's not because they reprinted it in a different set. That went actually the single R is up to $5 now, but that's a drop in the bucket compared to some of the other cards.
It's stuff like the brainstorm, the free fresh, the level 1 bomb, basically cards you see in 8 bar. Those are just kind of out of a price range for most people to buy.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I put 8 bar Fate somewhere in high B, maybe low A tier, depending on the room. But like I said, I have a completely different opinion of 8 door.
I put 8 door in mid A.
If you guys were talking about 8 bar, then yes, I understand your.
Oh yeah.
Low.
Oh yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm definitely not going to lowball 8 door Fate because
No, I'm not.
I mean, like I said, free 6 door Icy Tails, it generates really good resources. I mean, the Rin cigarettes is never a bad combo for me, in my opinion. And doesn't it? Oh crap! There was 2 cards I can't remember, 2 tech cards I think, that were really really good. Red tech cards I think, but I can't remember what they are now. I haven't played against the deck enough.
I've only seen it a handful of times, and it's really annoying because it produces free resources. It'll allow itself another turn after using the free resources it just made. If it doesn't just eat crap.
Yeah, that's what 8 door Fate did against me, because me and Cody's matches, that's how it always is. One of us eats crap and the other one feasts. We never have a good game both. So that was my 8 door Fate in Chicago, and I just rolled over it because he had a horrible game. He couldn't get anything going properly. Honestly, 8 door Fate I probably put mid A tier, I think, just because I mean even the fact that it doesn't really have much of a skill check. It's a solitaire deck, and it doesn't have a whole big skill check like some of these 8 standby decks. You can literally put it in the hands of somebody who's been playing a couple months and doesn't have a ton of TCG experience, and they can just roll over you.
It's read cards, grab cards, that's good for relevant situation.
Yeah, throw cards in hand, throw it on the board, turn it sideways. You're probably generating resources, and you're not losing too bad. And if you're losing board against 8 standby with that, as long as it's not taking a crap on you, you probably just don't care.
The thing is, 8 door doesn't necessarily lose board.
That is also true, yeah.
its power on offense is higher than most other 1v1 decks, and the fact that it has anti-trade at level 2
Yeah.
means that it can shut down board-based decks at level 2, depending on what the condition is.
And again, if they have all the pieces, they also still have the Archer and Rin. So yeah. Is that a draw after the refresh?
Yep.
Yeah. And so
I think it's also like a $40 rare.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, you generate a free card and you don't take damage. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably mid A tier for me. I'm honestly kind of surprised I didn't see that one that I played against Cody was like the only one I saw all day. I think.
I think a lot of people have it. Is the
Let's
thing.
see. I think there was one in Germany that topped. There's one in Belgium that topped for 8-door, and an 8-bar, and a door bar. I don't think I've ever. Oh no, 2 door bars. I don't think I've ever seen that one yet. I'll have to look at that later. Germany had 1 8-door and 1 8-bar, and then we didn't have any fates in the top 8 at Chicago. I can't really think of any other older decks or any modern or older boogeymen to speak about at this point.
I think most of the sets that have gotten announced at this point will just be based on like what's coming out and what's relevant. Do I think Bunny Girl getting its movie is a good thing? No.
The reprint, maybe not for Springfest, but the reprint for fans is going to be great because there's going to be more than 3 of that fucking card in the world. Hopefully, if the reprint is big enough, that playset's going to come down from. I know of one a year and a half ago that was sold for $750. I believe there was one on the auction center or Global that went for $900 or something in English.
I sold one at playset for $550.
Yeah.
I sold my deck for $850.
Yeah. That was a deck, not a playset that I know that went for $750 from someone that we know, and he actually lucked out because he only had 2 of the brainstorm, and I found 2 of them for him on a website for like $15 each. That probably won't have any effect on BCS or Springfest, but it'll be interesting to see when the reprint comes out, when the signs and everything start flying again. Now, obviously, the TD is not going to be reprinted because TDs don't get reprinted, but investors and collectors don't know that. So, I can't think of anything else for Springfest this year to go over. Everything else now depends on how much of a difference Hololive makes in Springfest once it comes out. So, anybody else got any notes or observations or anything?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
All right, well, we've been at it it's going on 2 hours now, so may as well cut this short now. I'm Tony WeisSacKing, Aubrey from Indy, Travis from Columbus, Patrick Garrity from Rochester, New York. Hopefully we will see you guys again later.